Embarking on a Camino de Santiago pilgrimage is an amazing adventure that you can do in a group or completely by yourself with relatively little planning. But what about the things that could go wrong? Like every journey, the Camino can have its shadows. Today, I'm going to peer into the dark side of the Camino, uncovering stories of crime, some challenges of walking alone, particularly as a woman, environmental dangers, and the complexities of human connection and relationships. Yet, as we navigate these potential shadows, we'll discover the light of resilience, safety, and companionship. Join me as we journey through 4 of these fears and dangers and find some solace in positive actions that you can take to mitigate against these. Number 1, crime on the Camino. The Camino is mostly a network of safe paths, with the most popular routes such as the Camino Frances and the Camino Portuguese being trekked by thousands and thousands of pilgrims every year. However, it's not immune to crime. The Camino attracts all kinds of people, most of whom are on an adventure and a walk of discovery. But as in all parts of society, it will also attract people who don't hold the same values as you. During my first night on the Camino Frances, the hospitalero, or the host at Border in the Pyrenees, gave us a Camino induction. He told us that you meet the whole world on the Camino. Most of the people that you meet will be good and have good intentions, but occasionally people are there for other reasons. Petty crimes such as theft can happen, and I know of at least one person that had some cash stolen in an albergue while I was walking the Camino Frances. This person reported it and was told by the police that it was unlikely to be a fellow pilgrim. They explained to her that there are some people who see pilgrims as a target and even go to such lengths as to get hold of a pilgrim passport and book into larger albergues, particularly in larger towns where it's easier to be anonymous. But do let me reassure you, this is not a common event, and there are some things that you can do to keep your valuables safe and to avoid being a victim of petty crime. A bum bag, or fanny pack as it's called in the USA, may not be the height of fashion that it was in the 1980s, but on the Camino, you won't care. Keep your passport, your money, your credit cards, your phone, and your camera with you at all times. And I recommend locking them away at night or even keeping them with you in your bed if you're in a communal sleeping area without lockers. But there's no need to be nervous or paranoid about it. It just becomes part of your routine, and after a couple of nights, you won't be overthinking it. But what about more serious crime? In 2015, there was a shocking story about an American pilgrim who was lured to a remote outbuilding by false yellow arrows outside of Astorga, and she was really sadly murdered. This was a horrific event, and the perpetrator was eventually caught and is currently serving a 23-year jail sentence. Although the very worst did happen in this scenario, it was an extremely rare event, and just because this happened once, it does not increase the chances of something like this happening again. If you are concerned about being alone in a more rural area, I would suggest the following. Walk at a time of day when there are other pilgrims around. Also, be aware of how you can access help if you ever need to. The emergency number in Europe, including Spain, is 112. In Spain, there's also an app that you can have downloaded onto your phone called Alert Cops. You can use this app as a messenger system while on the Camino in Spain to communicate to security services in your own language. But make sure you download it before you go, and then you're ready if you need it. Number 2, safety for solo pilgrims. Now, there is some overlap here with the first section, but do bear with me. Setting off on your own as a solo pilgrim can feel incredibly exciting and empowering, but also quite scary. What if something goes wrong? If you've never walked a Camino, or if you're planning a solo pilgrimage, you may be surprised to find that there are many others on the trail who are also doing this on their own. You will more than likely find yourself traveling in a community or Camino family. Even if you prefer to walk alone, you will regularly see familiar faces along the way. And remember that probably over 99% of people are friendly, helpful, and are there for their own adventure. However, there was an occasion where I felt more than a prickle of fear. And this was when I found myself totally alone on the trail. On this particular day, I decided to do an epic 33 kilometers or 20-mile day, and my destination was Samos, which is on an alternate route of the Camino. Samos is a beautiful village and it's dominated by its monastery and church. And despite adding extra kilometers onto my Camino, it was the place I just did not want to miss. But in order to do it, I needed extra time in my day to fit it into my Camino. So I was walking through the town of Castella, and there were other pilgrims that I knew that were sat at the outside pavement cafes drinking beer, and they said, come and join us, sit down, and chill. But I had another 10 kilometers to walk and I couldn't join them. And I said, no, I need to keep walking. The path took me along a road and then through some woodland. At one point, I did pass a man on the trail shortly after leaving Castella, and this was by the road. And actually, this was a man that I didn't feel comfortable being around, but he was walking in the opposite direction to me, away from Santiago. So I started to relax again as I felt that I was putting some distance between us. However, a few kilometers later in the remote woodlands, my mind started playing tricks on me when I really did think that there was someone walking behind me. I thought I heard a sound and I thought there was someone there. I started to get really worried that this man had turned around and was now following me. I did reach Samos very late in the day and I was safe, but when I went to get dinner later that evening in the bar, I bumped into another female pilgrim and we chatted and we shared our experiences of the day. Interestingly, she had also become a bit freaked out on the same part of the trail and had also passed the same man and had felt the same, just really uneasy. She ended up stopping at the only bar on that section and calling a taxi and then being driven the final 5 kilometers or so. But the lesson in all of this is if you intend to walk alone on a less travelled route, either I would suggest walking in a group with other pilgrims or walk at a time of day when there are other pilgrims around and about. Have you ever walked a Camino alone, and did you have any moments like these? If you are comfortable, and only if you're comfortable sharing, please do share your story in the comments below. Number 3, environmental dangers. This may not be a fear, but it is a very real potential danger. There are sections on the Camino that intersect with busy roads and sections where you're walking along a road without a separate path. To keep yourself safe walking towards oncoming traffic, wear a head torch if it's dark, and even have a little red light on your backpack and wear reflective clothing. Another danger is heat and adverse weather conditions. Sadly, pilgrims have lost their lives on the Camino due to heat exhaustion. And most people do tend to walk the Camino in the summer. And last summer when I was walking, there were days that I was hiking and the temperatures soared to above 40 degrees centigrade. So that's about 104 Fahrenheit. If you find yourself on the Camino in a heat wave or in these conditions, just don't gamble with your safety. Set off really, really early in the day to beat the heat. And if it gets too hot, just seek shade, drink plenty of water and have electrolytes on hand as well and drink those. It's totally okay to just shorten your days and keep yourself safe and well. So that's what I did. I just walked shorter distances. But also in the shoulder seasons, there can be unexpected storms and even snowfall. Again, do take precautions and listen to locals and change your plans or change your route to keep yourself safe. It's not worth taking the risk. If you're still watching this video, I'm just really so glad that you're here. I started uploading videos very recently and I'm slowly growing my channel. I would be really grateful if you would join me on my YouTube journey and subscribe. Thank you. Number 4, complexities of human connection. There are a couple of things that I want to discuss here. The first one is a strange one and I hesitated about sharing it. For me, walking the Camino the first time and doing most of it on my own was a huge challenge on many levels. I've actually rarely been alone for my whole life, and I also wanted to try and be self-sufficient and even spend hours and hours with my own company just to see how I would manage. Meanwhile, I also had a fear of being alone and I wanted to be around others. So this created a whole tension in me of wanting to be with others while also at the same time wanting to walk alone and be with my thoughts. The way I found myself navigating this was to at times walk with people and get to know them and enjoy their company, but also at other times to choose to walk alone. But in the evenings, I loved socializing with others, especially if this involved communal meals. But I also usually took some time out to rest and spend some time on my own for an hour or two beforehand. I do think being on the Camino, you discover what works for you. So you may have to figure this out yourself. There will be others who are total social butterflies and want to be around others all of the time. And there'll also be people there because they want to spend time on their own. And over time, it does seem easier to pick up on the vibes that people will inevitably give off. The second thing is unwanted attention from someone who has romantic intentions towards you. So, this isn't actually something I personally experienced. Maybe I give off clear, I am unavailable vibes, I don't know. But it is something that a friend of mine experienced. She will remain anonymous, but she has given me permission to share her story. My friend is a kind, friendly, and very open to making friends with other pilgrims kind of person while she is walking. Unfortunately, this meant that another pilgrim felt that he could pursue her. Even after the Camino, she has received repeated messages asking to meet up. It is easier said than done, especially if you are a really kind person that naturally doesn't want to hurt other people's feelings. But you also need to be kind to yourself and bear in mind that the other person probably is not respecting you and your boundaries, especially if you've made it clear that you're not interested. So, firstly, be clear. Address the elephant in the room and tell them that you're not interested. And if they don't give up, they don't get the message, well, maybe it's time for some more drastic action, particularly if you're still on the trail. Another female pilgrim that I did meet along the way experienced some unwanted male attention from a much older man, and she ended up staying an extra night somewhere without telling him, which meant that she was no longer walking in the same bubble of pilgrims and basically, in effect, lost him. So, has anything like this happened to you on the Camino? And what did you do about it? And do you have any additional tips to share apart from the ones that I have? If you want further advice on how to prepare for your Camino de Santiago, please do check out this Camino playlist.